I've been working as a video editor for about 3 years now, and over that time, my setup has constantly changed. Lately, I've been relying mostly on my MacBook because my work has evolved from just being a video editor to now running a YouTube organic agency. But a few days ago, I finally decided to upgrade my setup to stay more productive and honestly, just to feel more excited to work every day. And here's the thing, I kind of regret not doing it sooner. This is a budget setup. I didn't want to invest too much because I'm thinking about moving to a different place by the end of the year. So in this video, I'll go over the equipment that I'm using, all the accessories I keep on my desk at all times, and we'll even summarize the cost at the end of the video. So let's start with the room and where I place my setup. This room is relatively small. In fact, my entire apartment is pretty small, so I didn't have a lot of options for positioning. I decided to place the setup right in front of the window. That way I can use a natural light source whenever I'm filming a video like I'm doing right now. And I've heard that it's also better for your eyes overall. My windows face south, so between 1 to 5 p.m. the sun hits directly into my window, which means I have to slightly lower the blinds, but besides that, it's a solid spot. There's also enough legroom under the desk, which is really important for working long hours without feeling cramped. One thing I also did to make the space feel a little bit bigger is keep things minimal. I don't have a lot of extra furniture in the room, so it stays open and clutter-free. I also sleep on the couch next to it because this is the only room that I have. Some might say it's unhealthy, but I can just crash after long hours of work. The desk I'm using is from Misk and it cost me around $40. It's nothing fancy, but it does the job. It has a clean, minimal look, which I prefer since I don't like too much clutter. It's sturdy enough for my needs, and for the price, I really can't complain. It also took me about 10 minutes to set it up. I did want to get a standing desk, but since I'll be moving out by the end of the year, there's no point in me investing into a desk that is $200 to $300, so I went with this cheaper option. However, if you're looking for a budget-friendly standing desk option, there are a lot of decent adjustable desk converters that you can place on top of a regular desk to switch between sitting and standing. My chair is also from Misk, and I got it for around $60. Again, nothing crazy, but it's comfortable enough for now. When I do move out later this year, I might invest into something more ergonomic, but for a budget setup, this one works fine. The key thing is that it supports my back decently well during long editing or strategy sessions. Honestly, when I was living with my parents and for the most part of my working from home journey, I was using an old kitchen chair. And of course, the difference is huge. I think the chair you use really makes or breaks your entire setup. Now, let's talk about the monitor. I went with a LG 34-inch ultra-wide curved monitor, and it was around $450. It might not be so cheap, but it was really worth it. This is honestly one of my favorite parts about the setup, and it was honestly a game changer, especially for video editing. The extra screen real estate makes everything feel way less cramped compared to working just on the MacBook screen. It's also slightly curved, so it's easy to see the corners of your screen as well. Now, unfortunately, it's only 3.4K, so it's not like full 4K resolution. So if you're somebody doing creative work like video editing and majority of the edits you make are in 4K, or you're doing web design, you might want to consider investing into a 4K monitor within the same or a lower budget. In my opinion, the difference isn't really that big. I've used 4K monitors before. I didn't really own one. There isn't like a huge difference when editing 4K footage on it. Some might say there is, but for me, I haven't really seen it, but it's really up to your own preference. I really like mine since I'm not editing as much as I used to, and I often use a split screen for documenting and research purposes. Now, this entire setup is powered by a MacBook Pro M1 2021 with 32 gigs of RAM. This thing is an absolute beast, and even though it's a few years old, it still handles everything I throw at it without breaking a sweat. I bought it a few months ago for about $1,400, and it was brand new actually. It was from the guy that supplies literally the entire country with MacBooks. I live in Serbia. It's a small country in Southern Europe, and buying MacBooks brand new from the stores is not really cheap. I've seen there are a lot of good deals on a laptop like this on eBay, and they usually go under $1,000, maybe even with better specs, because my laptop has 512 gigabytes SSD, and if you're lucky, you might end up finding one for 1 terabyte with same amount of RAM. Most of the time, I keep it in clamshell mode, so it's closed and sitting on a Temu laptop holder, which, let's be real, is super cheap. Now, once again, if you're looking to buy MacBook Pro for cheaper, definitely check out Apple's refurbished store if you're in the US, or places like eBay and Facebook Marketplace. You can save a ton of money that way. For the keyboard, I'm using the Logitech K380S, which costs around $43. It's small, wireless, and super convenient. I was actually surprised by how small this keyboard is. It's literally the same size as the keyboard on my MacBook, and since it's that small, it gives the illusion that there's more space on the desk. My mouse is the Logitech Signature M650. It's around $40. It's wireless and it feels great to use. I didn't go crazy with an expensive mouse because this one already has everything I need for day-to-day work. I never actually had an expensive mouse. This is like the best one that I've got. And in all honesty, most of my editing career was spent on my touchpad on Mac, so Yeah, I know. Now looking back at it, it's kind of insane. Also got a desk mat from Temu for about $5. It's nothing special, but it helps keep the desk organized and gives a smoother surface for my mouse. I did buy this Logitech desk mat for about $23, but I'm not a huge fan of the color, and to be honest, I didn't even test it out. Now, as for the small accessories that are always on my desk, I have my camera batteries. I always keep a couple charged up for filming. They're not original batteries, but I consulted with a friend of mine who had the same camera as me, and he told me that there's no real difference between the original and these replicas. I also have my AirPods for taking calls or just zoning in with some music. I've had them for about 2 years now. I began to notice that the audio quality isn't the same anymore, so I would have to replace them relatively soon. I also have my AirPods, which I use more often now since the quality of the audio is much better, and when I'm working, I usually play high frequency music, which helps me completely dial in on the work. I also don't have to think about charging them up. They also have an amazing mic, which is good for sales calls, team meetings, and things of that nature. I also have this external hard drive because you always need extra storage when working with these video files. What's funny is this hard drive actually outlived all the SSDs that I had before, and you know, it's super reliant. I bought it in Dubai 1.5 years ago on accident, and it's amazing that this thing actually works to this day. I've had 4 SSDs since, and this thing actually outlived all of them, which is amazing. So I'm really thankful that I bought it because in all honesty, it's my go-to at this point. It might not be the fastest, but I can for sure rely on it to keep my footage safe. I also have my wallet, nothing crazy, but I keep it here for the convenience. It's also super cheap. I bought it on AliExpress about 1.5 years ago, and it still holds up to this day. And finally, I have my Temu laptop holder, which was around $5 to $10. I can't even remember, but it's great. It serves its purpose. So that's my current setup. It's definitely budget friendly for people who are doing creative work. It's worth it to invest a bit more into the laptop and also into a monitor. It gets the job done, and most importantly, it makes me want to work more. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.